Hello. Today I'm gonna be talking about Joker, directed by Todd Phillips and starring Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. I'm actually shooting this back to back with the other review that hopefully will also be on the channel. But yeah. Anyway, to start off, I wanted to say that I had no expectations going into this movie. I hadn't seen any promos or trailers or any of that sort. The only thing that I knew about it before going into it was that it's going to be a musical, but this was news that came out maybe 2 years ago. And ever since that news came out, I've instantly become disinterested with it. I'm not a big fan of musicals, so it I highly doubted that even if it's a Joker musical, it could keep my interest. And boy, was I right. So the first one kind of summed up by the line, "I thought my life was a tragedy, but instead it's a comedy." I thought, okay, then this movie was gonna be an expansion of that, and it was supposed to delve deeper into him, deeper into Joker's character, and that's what the movie was going to go through. And all in all, it sort of is. It is a Greek tragedy. Um, that Arthur Fleck's character. All in all, it really is sort of a Greek tragedy of Arthur Fleck's character. Um, with the romantic angle and the tragedies and the backstabbing that happens in the movie, you really get that sense, and that's what Todd Phillips was trying to go for. With Arthur sort of getting introduced to Harley, and he says that this is sort of like the music coming back into his life, he kind of embarks on this romantic journey with her, filled with those elements. This movie isn't as much of a sequel as it is the second act of a play. I would say that putting Joker 1 and 2 together is kind of the full picture of Joker, and I think that might be what they're intending, but I'm not sure. It's supposed to carry on its predecessor's emotion, but here it's where it doesn't exactly work for someone like me who's I haven't seen the first Joker movie in a couple of years now, and I barely remember it. I just remember a couple of the scenes and sort of what Joaquin Phoenix performance was like, but other than that, I barely remember anything that happened. So coming into this movie with, you're just supposed to sort of snap back into that depth of where Arthur Fleck's character was left off, and it starts off with that drabby tone, and you're supposed to carry on with that emotion. But if you don't go in with it, you can never really catch on or connect to any of the emotions that was trying to be portrayed. One thing that I found really interesting was sort of the switch of perspective for Arthur himself, where in the first movie it was sort of he was the king of the world, and he was a narrator of his own story, albeit an unreliable narrator for us, the audience. And this movie is sort of a switch on that, where he's no longer the king of his own story, and he's being told unreliable things by a different narrator, and he's supposed to go along with it. And it's sort of us seeing how Joker would react to Joker like things, which was interesting. It's this leading down, or this inherent need of the fantasy that that's supposed to involve you into the movie as much as Todd Phillips would want you to. With the movie sort of introducing this notion that Arthur and Joker are supposed to be two separate entities, but in his own head, they're not. It's one person, and that's his internal fight. That's his demons. Is that this fight between his fantasy and his reality, as what the movie's core emotion is supposed to be. But to be completely honest, I did not see that until after coming out and sort of reflecting on it while watching the movie. It was just, it progresses so slow and boring, honestly, that it just kind of, you're just kind of sinking in and just watching what's happening instead of sort of thinking about what the meaning is behind it. At It was rather monotonous for I would say it was rather monotonous for the first half of the movie, and then around the halfway point where we get a song and dance sequence where um Arthur sort of comes out and accepts his other side, or his darker side, and the Joker personality sort of comes out and takes control, is when, and by the way, that was the only song sequence that I might have liked. It was from that point then it sort of seems to pick up, and you get a couple of great scenes from Joker, especially interacting with some other characters and having conversations with them. Those were the scenes that really hooked me. But the problem comes within this. But the problem comes within the story's draggy screenplay, which sort of holds back in most of the scenes to sort of either set up a music number or to come back from one. Of course, it's a musical, so a lot of the sequences just break into song, with some of them being in his head and some of them not. And it makes sense for a character like Joker to have a musical, but I just wish it wasn't for this movie, because there was so much more that could have been done with Arthur's character that I felt could not have been done because of those limitations by having Lady Gaga, who I don't know if she was added before or after the fact that they decided that it was a musical. And then the repetitive nature of event happens and a song comes up and it sort of takes you out of the movie, at least for me. Again, being the second act of his play, you're supposed to watch this character learn and grow, and he kind of does, but you could never see it in an interesting way. And it's always, the movie sort of picks up and just drops back down immediately. I guess what I mean is there was no room for drama to actually build and grow, as we have seen in the first one. And with the slow build up was where, and then he exploded, was where you get that drama. And in this movie there's no way for that to happen, and especially when I thought it would, towards the end it fizzles out. A great way to sum it up would be how the first movie sort of summed up itself with the ending being played off with the That's Life song. This movie kind of has the same thing, being with That's Entertainment being sung through the movie. And while the first one sort of kept true to that theme, this one ironically doesn't. I guess if you liked the first one and you really like musicals, you might have an interest in it. But for me, as a general audience, I just could not care for it. But yeah, thank you. I'll see you in the next one.